Hi everyone, welcome to this another Mr. F Does Take 5. Should be interesting because I've no idea where it's going to go, but we'll start somewhere. The lockdown beard's coming on. If it gets any whiter, I'll be a shoe-in for Christmas. Let me just find myself on the screen so I can see any comments that are coming my way. There we go. Right, I'm not sure where the bit of paper gone that had the list of the 5 things, but to the best of my knowledge, it was an envelope, lace, a stamp, text, and a blue theme. And that's what I'm going to be working on, I think. So let's take the glasses off and then I can see what I'm doing. Close up. Who we got on board? Donna Moses, nice and early. Hiya. Terry, hi. Hilda, hi. Amanda, hi. Mabel, hi. Smiley Jania, hi. And Susan Pive. Glad you could join me. So I gave it some thought and I thought I'd needed some inspiration because it's not the easiest of challenges really if you're not used to doing blue things. So I thought I'd look through some of our genuine ephemera, shall we say. Actual ephemera from days gone by, and I don't mean last week. And those that have been watching for a while remember this postcard album that I picked up at a car boot. It's like a garage sale, I guess, if you're in the States, but a car boot sale. And within that is a number of postcards and bits of ephemera. That one is for the royal wedding cake. Again, it's Tuck's postcards. I'm not sure what year that would be and whose wedding cake it was. Oh, yes. Princess Elizabeth, Huntley and Palmer's wedding cake. There's a nice photo of a gentleman that was taken in Alston in Cumberland, which is about 10 miles down the road from us. There's one there from the Royal Show. And on the back, somebody's written 1962. So I can actually reveal that that postcard is as old as I am and probably in slightly better condition. We have some there, a very nice old couple saying Roses of Picardy. Another postcard is very Art Deco in style, printed in England, and a little ditty on the bottom that I won't bother to read to you. Another little postcard there. That's the parish church in Ilkley. So we're flipping through all these. There's a little card there of, I think it says the Eureka Jubilee Singers November 1958. And I can just make out something about Illinois, USA, and a list of the band members that have signed the back. Might mean something to somebody, particularly if you're from Illinois. There's a coronation procession. Nothing's coming through as blue yet, but over the page there's a nice old-fashioned birthday card. Look, on your birthday may all your hopes be realised and all your dreams come true, and may this day dawn bright and gay and bring good luck to you. There we go. And that was in the form of a postcard. So a lot of birthday cards were in the form of postcards because it was much cheaper to send a postcard than a letter back in the day. Dunkirk, there we go. And this is the one that I came across, which is a blue theme, as you'll see. It's a Christmas card. It says, oh, you can't make it out, Glow and Dig Jewel or something like that. And then when we turned it over, we find out that it's actually got a Danish postmark and stamp. It was sent to somebody, V. Smith in Newcastle upon Tyne, and a nice little message on the back, wishing you a Merry Christmas and a bright New Year from, and I can't quite make out the name, it might be Eve, maybe. And then there's a little note on the side that says, I'm having a nice time, the food is good, and I hope to put on some fat. Our times have changed, eh? Everybody's trying to get it off these days. In those days, they were hoping to get some on. What they were doing in Denmark, I'm not entirely sure. But that's the one I've chosen to go with as my inspiration. Now I'm not going to actually touch that because it's too nice to meddle with, shall we say. So what I decided to do was to create an envelope that card could fit inside, and sort of paint a narrative, shall we say, around that card. Obviously, a modern envelope is much too white, much too new, and wouldn't do it any justice. So really this live is about making that envelope fit the look of the card, and that's what I'm going to be trying to achieve. We'll pop that card over there so I can look at it and keep it in mind when I'm doing the inspiration. So the first thing I need to do is to distress this up, I think. So I'll get one of the boards. We shall peel it open. I'm not bothered about taking great care because I really want it to be sort of distressed and slightly torn in places, as an old envelope would be, based on the premise, the narrative that I'm going to write, that Miss Smith, that received this card, was so fond of it she chose to keep it in an envelope along with some other things. That's the narrative. So what I'm going to do first is get a sanding block with quite a rough grit on it and give that a good scene too. I'm going to break down some of the fibres. You can see the dust coming off it, and all it's doing is taking that sort of shiny newness and sometimes the coating that they tend to put on things when they're in the manufacturing process. So I'm just breaking that down a bit, taking off, breaking through the edges in quite a rough manner. The rougher I can be, the more random I can be, the better. That's it. Crease it up. Get it creased up. We can put some little tears in this. Which bit's going to show? Put a little tear in there. Perhaps one on the top corner where it was pulled open in the first instance. And really give that a bit of a good scuffing, which hopefully will pay dividends later on. Need things to work with. This is slightly a different approach to what we would normally do when we're just trying to make something really pretty, make a pretty tag or a journaling card or an envelope to go into a journal. This is really to enhance the old ephemera, to paint a story. That's me thinking anyway. Well, she'll see whether that actually transpires to be the case. You think watching Miss P ink things is boring? Watching Mr. F sand a bit of paper? Is there anybody out there? Oh yes, I can see Miss P's watching, Nancy's watching, and Jean's watching, and Janny is making coffee while I prep. That's very good. Mine's strong white, no sugar. Right, I think that's probably good enough. You could go at it for as long as you like, but I think that's probably sufficient for now. And just give it a little shake, get rid of some of the dusty mess. Right, now what I intend to do is to give that some colour. Obviously white isn't going to cut it. And bearing in mind the theme of the Take 5, which is blue, I'm going to stain this blue, which in the UK that was the traditional sort of colour. You could buy airmail letters, which were blue, and they were just one piece of paper that folded up, and it was cheaper to send than an actual letter. They obviously seem to have something against envelopes back in the day. So being a traditional sort of airmail letter colour, I thought blue would be good inspiration. And what I'm going to use to do that, Miss P's probably mentioned these in the past, is use some Brusho, which is a product made by Colourcraft. Comes in various colours, and it's really sort of very intense pigment in a powder form. I think somebody does someone called Pixie Dust, which is a similar thing these days, I think. But this one's called Brusho and made by Colourcraft. It comes in various colours. It's got light brown, purple, yellow, Prussian blue, but I've decided to go with some ultramarine. Prussian blue is probably a bit too strong a colour for what I want. So let me find some way to put them out of the way. Now you need very, 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 very little of this to go a long way, as you'll see. Let me get a little spatula. Ching. I've got this little spatula that I found one day. It was in a charity shop where I find most of my things, and I think it's for mixing up gels and things for doing nail art, but it's perfect for scooping little bits of things out. So you can either do this two ways. You can either mix that up with some water and brush it on, or you could sprinkle some crystals, spray it, and hope for the best. And that's what I'm going to try first. If it isn't too successful, I'll go back to the other method. But we'll give it a go. That's all we can do. You can see the powder in there. It is actually blue, this one. Quite often you open the packet and it's some sort of dull white yellow, but when you actually spray it with the water, it turns into the colour. That's why it's best to write on the lid what they are, because you can't tell sometimes from the actual powder. Now I'm going to get some of this out. You'll see very little. You see that tiny. There's like 4 little crystals in there. You'll barely see them on the paper. I'm just going to spray them about. And I doubt whether you can even see them. I'll put the lid on. I'm not sure whether you can see, but there's some tiny little bits, specks, microscopic almost, that I've put on there. Now I'm going to get the spritzer, check it's working. Yep. And then spray that, and then hopefully you should see some magic transformation. Let me get a brush in case I need to move it around a little. There you go. Can you see the blue coming? And then we can move that around. Just them tiny specks are getting quite a bit of colour. Let's wet that up and get some more. It's not quite enough. I think it would have probably been enough had I mixed it with the water. I'm just going to get some more. There we go, more spritzing. More spreading. It's coming up a bit better now. How's that looking on the screen? Yeah, it's looking all right. We don't want a totally even, perfectly smooth blue. It's supposed to be aged. I'm guessing that postcard probably, I'm guessing sometime in the 50s, I would guess, but that's a guess. Now I've just got to decide whether I actually like that or whether I'd be better off making some up in a pot. I think that might come across all right once it's dried. Let's do the other side. Let's do the other side. I'll just try the other method as well, just to see which one we like. So again, you put very few little crystals in this little bowl. You see there's a little bit in there already. Spray some water in, and you see that just those few little crystals, you get quite an intense blue. There we go. Talk amongst yourselves while I paint me envelope. Give it the blue look. It's got to be blue. That's the theme. You can see now where we sanded it and the edges, it's picking up more because we've taken off that sort of production coating, shall we say. So let's put that to one side now. Put this away, because if you ever drop any of that, it goes everywhere and you'll never ever 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 get rid of it without any great difficulty. Right, now I think we need to probably dry that. I would normally just set it aside and let it dry itself, but we haven't got time for that sort of nonsense today. Cover your ears, let's have a quick look. It's Fiona making everybody do lists of things they need to buy. She's very good at having lists. Wish lists, love lists, any sort of list. She's very fond of lists. You're making your own lists from what you've seen, that's good. Lift that up, turn it over. Obviously it gets quite fragile with all the wet, but it also helps the aging process, I think. You can see that side's that which will be, I think, the front is looking quite nice. The colours have run. I'm sure if you were to get all poetic, you could say that maybe she cried and the tears landed on the envelope. Who's to know? You can write your own story. Let's get some really... Let's go to number 2. Oh no, we are on number 2. Bear with, it's like watching paint dry. Well, I hope you're all keeping well. Of course, it was only yesterday that we were live, so not a lot of time's gone past, but a lot can happen in a day. Here in the UK, it's now about 20 past 2 in the afternoon. Sun's just decided to come out, but it'll be going dark in about an hour, I would imagine, at this time of year. At the back of our house is a fell, or a hill, and the sun tends to go down a bit quicker because it drops down behind the fell quicker than it would if we lived in a more open area. The perils of living on the side of a hill. Let's see if that's dry yet. It's not quite dry. Bear with. I don't want to start inking it while it's still wet. There'll be more drying and waiting later, so make yourself a coffee, settle in, have your breakfast or your lunch or your tea, depending where you're from, or your supper if you're from Australia. You're probably already in bed. Just a bit down there now. Didn't take this long to dry the last time I did one, but that was a long time ago. Maybe I used more water this time. Right, there we go. I think that's probably due for it now. So to keep you waiting, swap that board out for a second. Get a towel. There we go. You can hear it's nice and dry now. So what I need to do now is to just fold it up. Which way does it go? That way. Put it back into its sort of envelope shape. You see that the bits that we tore there are just creeping around a bit there. That's lovely. And already I think you'll agree that's looking like much more like a distressed old envelope. But we can go further. We certainly can indeed. That's going to go over the top like that. What we need to do now is to introduce some aging or some ink, I think we could say. I've got a number of distress inks by Tim Holtz. That's a walnut stain, which is the darker one, a vintage photo, and a tea dye. I think tea dye is probably the lightest of the three. We shall start, I think, probably with that one, vintage photo. Let me get a clean board. I could use the other side of that one. And we shall start inking this up. I'll leave it folded first off. Need one of the little spongy daubery things. And we'll just start coming on the edges, just giving it a bit. There we go. You can see that that's starting to look a bit aged already. Takes some of the brightness out the blue, really makes it like it's been hanging around for a while, like me. Been hanging around for a while now. Do the same on the back of the envelope, which of course at some point we're going to have to add some things to, otherwise it would just be a relatively plain but old blue envelope. And if we're going to make a story up, we really need to give it some effort that you can make the story up from, rather than it just being a postcard in a blue envelope. We need to create some sort of imaginary narrative around it. There we go. That's it. Just use whatever's left just to tone back that blue a little. You can see that that's now looking like an aged envelope, I suppose we could say. Not forgetting that there'll be parts on the inside that you will also see. That's why I made it back into these sort of envelope shape, so that I could tell more easily which bits really are going to need some. Sorry?
No, that's the top.
Miss P's saying that's the top, but I'm not sure what she's referring to.
Yeah, no, it's alright. It's alright.
There we go. Right, so we're going to I think that's what she's referring to. Make sure we get the top as well. You must be so used to now seeing Miss P ink around things that you, at this point, you really feel like nodding off. And I wouldn't blame you. This is probably more inking than would normally go on, because I'm going for the real sort of aged, crinkly dinkly look. Let's make sure that's just over the top of there, because that's the way that it's going to go. There we go. Got a nice little bit of torn edge there that we're going to go. So that's the first inking. That's the sort of general aging process. But then on the very edges, we're really going to go as dark as possible on it, which is where the walnut stain comes in. We can use the same pad and really just need to catch the very sort of edges. Hopefully you can see that that's really sort of really, I mean, you could be forgiven for thinking that maybe she smoked given the amount of staining, but I prefer to think that maybe it was just she had a coal fire and it just aged naturally. I think that's coming along very nicely. Now on this we're going to do the edges again, and then we're going to pay special attention to the tears that we've put in to make sure that they really look like they have aged and not just been put in. So got that tear there on there. We're just going to really darken that up, and then we're going to give it a bit of a roll in, a bit more ink, a bit more rolling. You can see that it's just rolled over. It looks like it's been like that for years. And I got another little tear there. Need to really darken that one up as well. Making sure you get in. Trying to achieve a sort of natural look, shall we say, rather than something that's... Oh, there's my sponge going. Come back. Rather than looking like something that's a bit contrived, we'll try and get it a bit more natural looking. Perhaps don't want that one curled over quite so much. There we go. So how are we looking? Right, a bit more on there, I think. And you may be thinking this is a lot of effort to put into an envelope, but I think hopefully it should be worth it in the end. Let's just knock that up a bit. You've got bits there, but you won't be seeing those, but I'll just bring it over a little just to make sure that should one peek inside, and it'll use up whatever ink's left on the sponge. There we go, I think that's enough walnut. I think we can probably consider that fairly well done, I would say. As envelopes go, we should just glue that down. Just a little bit along there. Just using a little bit of collall. Just hold it in place. Fold it. See, I don't want it, you know, I'm not bothered about it sticking absolutely perfectly because we've taken all that effort to make it aged. But we do want it to stay together. So that's the beginnings of our aged envelope. It's been, I think you could say that's blue. I'm more than happy that that's blue. I think that meets that criteria. Then we just check that our little card is going to fit in there nicely, which it is. So that's perfect. So now we need to think about what we're going to do on this side, which is obviously the side that would be addressed. And first off, I think we should think about perhaps a stamp. We have a little selection of used stamps that we acquired over time. And let's have a look through some of those. Obviously they're just a bit too bright and in your face. Some of these ones, we've got 2p ones, 20p ones. But I think what we should probably find is a blue one. Being we're on a blue theme. There's some there. 14p. It's a long time since the postage was 14p. And we have the dark blue or the light blue. So we can do what Miss P does and do a little audition and see what we think. There's the dark one. There's the light one. So, which is it to be? Any votes as to...
Try orange.
Well, yeah, there's a thought. Maybe we should try orange. Complementary colours and all that. That stands out nicely, doesn't it? I think we could probably age that slightly just to bring the edge down.
Orange and a blue.
Orange and a blue, there's a thought. We could always up the postage. That's a good thought, up the postage, because then it could have contained something that was worth remembering. That's a good thought, that. 2 stamps. Let's go orange and blue. Orange and blue, orange and light blue, orange and blue, or green. Orange and green. Now there's a thought. What do you think to orange and green? Some advice.
No. No.
Some...
No.
I'm going to go... I've decided I'm going to go for the light blue and the orange. Making a grand total of 33p. I wonder what you could send for 33p back in the day. Who's to know? But that's what I'm going to go for, I think. I'm quite happy to do that. Let's pop these ones away for another day. Let's see where we get to stick the queen down. Those of you that watched or have watched Hyacinth, get a ruler, measure where you're going to put your stamp. Hyacinth bouquet, keeping up appearances. It'll mean something to some of you, not a lot to some other people. I think we shall stick those down using probably glue sticks. I'll use.
Carolyn suggests you overlap them.
Ooh, overlapping. Kind of implies that whoever did it was a bit sloppy. So I'll give that some thought. Whether I want the person to be my sender.
Are you aging the stamps before you stick? No.
Yes, maybe that's a good idea, to age it before I stick. Good thought. Good thought, Miss P. It's much easier to do it now than after, even though I've already glued that. I'm going to get glue on my fingers, but I think it's probably better to do that now. Let's do that. Again, I don't want to completely cover that because I'm quite happy for the corners of the stamp to be coming up slightly. This time we can ink it before we glue it, which is the sensible thing to do. And then once I've taken some of the colour out, I shall audition it in some fancy overlapping type manner. Maybe not overlapping too much, but certainly maybe offset would look quite nice, maybe. I think I might go for that. Personal choice, of course. You can stick them wherever you like. You stick your stamps where you want them, I say. That's my choice, and I'll live with it. There we go. That's, hopefully you can see that that's looking all right as a stamped envelope goes. Just pop the top back on the glue. And next, the thing that every stamp needs is a postmark, because without a postmark it's not been anywhere. So we have a number of stamps. One seems to have gone on the missing list, but never mind. We have a little set that I think probably came from AliExpress with all little postmarks and texts and texts on it and things. So we'll shall ink that up. Let me just have a look through my little box, see if I can find the other one that I had. No, I've obviously lost it somewhere. Bear with, I'm just going to see if I can find my other stamp. Seems to have dropped off somewhere. It doesn't matter.
It's not so stuck on the thing, no?
No, it was on there. Matters not. Matters not. Matters not a jot. We can manage without. Yes, we've got a rubber stamp from Ali with a postmark on it. We'll use the walnut stain, I think, which is a nice dark brown. We don't need to be too dark because, of course, it will itself have aged. So we'll just get some ink on that stamp. See if our stamping goes all right. And we put one, I think, probably there, and see how that pans out for us. Oh, the claw's making an appearance. You see, you always thought it was me that had the claw, but no, it's got a life of its own. There we go. You see that? It's got a nice postmark there now. That's good. I'll see if I can find something else, maybe to... It's the revenge of the claw.
Another one? Another round one?
Yeah, you could be right.
I don't know where that one is, my dear.
There's a nice little one. Let's try that. Let's try that, eh? I don't know where that one went. It's gone on the missing list. It will return, I'm sure. I don't even know what this one says or does, but well, we'll give it a go. Because the only way to find out is to try. Let's try it over there. That looks quite nice, I think. I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite happy that that sort of shows that it's been properly postmarked and stamped and has come from somewhere. Who knows where. I think what I shall do next is, obviously we need to address it at some point. Hello envelope, how are you? But first of all, I shall, I think, just use one of these other stamps, which is just got a little bit of text, random text on it, just to perhaps put some on that inside, just to make look like perhaps there was a letter in there sometime, that the inks come off the letter and onto the envelope. That's me thinking. That's me rationale, as it were. Let's put that stamp on the little box. There we go. Get that inked up. Can't say I've ever used these stamps, so I've no idea what they come out like, but we're about to find out. Obviously it would have been easier to do this before I made the envelope up, but you know, we live and learn, as they say. There we go, that looks quite nice, doesn't it? It's got a little bit of text in there. Just makes it a bit. Let me peel that off and then just add a little bit more, perhaps there. Yes, that's looking nice. That's giving it a bit of authenticity. So that's taken care of the stamp. So we've done envelope, blue, stamp. Oh, we're cooking. We're cooking. You could even say that that was text, but you know, text will come in the form of a pen, I think. Right, now, the next thing we need to do, I think, is probably address it. So what we're going to do then is, on another trip to a charity shop, I found this nice little pink box, and within was a weird looking thing. You got to admit, that's quite weird looking, isn't it? Sort of pink, marbly, plasticky thing, like a 3-nippled cow or something. And the instructions come handily in Japanese, but when you open it up, you find that it contains a dip pen and 3 inks. That one's sepia, there's some red, and there's some blue. So it's perfect for this little job. It's a dip pen as opposed to a fountain pen. It stores no ink. It's called a dip pen because you dip it in. So that's what we should do. I think sepia is probably the appropriate colour for this. And we shall get the original postcard and sort of copy her address, really, I think is the way to put it. Using whichever handwriting style you want. I'm sure some of you are very good at calligraphy and that sort of thing. Me, not so much. But we shall see what we can do. We'll dip that in there. Miss V. Smith. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect because 256 Croydon Road, Newcastle upon Tyne. England. Obviously in the days before we had postcodes. There we are, scrawly as you like. So there we go. Obviously the handwriting doesn't match the one on the postcard, but there's nothing to say that the two originated from the same place, of course. Or from the same hand. So there we go, that's me dip pen, or the 3-nipple pen, depending how you want to refer to it. There we go, there's a sort of age scrawly, not trying to make it too neat. in a nice sepia ink, which will dry and sink back into the paper. I'll give that a little dry so I don't end up smudging anything. And then we can turn it over, and then I shall get my ink out again because I want to add an extra little bit of something somewhere. I'm going to write the narrative, shall we say, that this is probably from a close friend, possibly of the male persuasion, because why not? So we're just going to write on this back in nice bold letters SWALK, and just over where it seals we're going to put a nice cross. There we are.
Oh, that's so cute.
Just had a slightly romantic edge to my story now, because why not? No harm in a little romance, I say. So there we go. Let's walk, kiss, away we go. Let me just dry that so it doesn't get everywhere. So I think that's been reasonably successful to create an aged envelope that our postcard could sit nicely within, with the text on the back. Now, the astute among you will have noticed that we haven't done the lace yet. That is the next job on my list. So what we intend to do is use a little bit of lace on the edge there, but not stuck on, just loose, and then another little small piece of memorabilia that I found in the drawer, which was an old bus ticket, transport services. So what we intend to do is put a little bit of lace on there along with the bus ticket, and put a paper clip just so they were clipped on, so that it looks like that she was preserving some memory of some event. Maybe it was the bus trip to the church when she got married, maybe it was the first time they met when they were going to the cinema. Who's to know? Who is to know? Maybe he was the conductor, maybe she met him on the bus. We'll never know, but you can make your own story up. That's the beauty of it. But what we need to do, again, of course, is this is much too new and white and pristine. The ticket is a genuine old ticket, so we probably don't need to do too much to that. We might put a little bit of staining on it. And, of course, we also have the issue of the paperclip. Now, I don't need to tell you this, but obviously paper clips generally are bright and shiny. A paperclip that would have been on our envelope for a number of years, next to the ticket and the lace, would be not so bright and shiny, probably maybe even rusty. So what we're going to do is age the paperclip. That's the next job. Aging a paperclip. I bet you never thought you'd see somebody age a paperclip, did you? So generally with rust, it's usually best to go for 3 colours, to layer the colours. A light orangey colour, a mid-brown, and then a darker one to pick up some real deep rust. So what the paints I've chosen to do this with are ones by Deco Art. That one is a real jack-o'-lantern orange fluorescent. So that's a really bright. You're going to think that's much too much, but bear with. The mid-tone, we've gone for a nice oxblood, which is a very reddy brown. And the dark, we've got a soft black. We'll give these a good shake up. The oxblood never really been opened, but we can just screw the top off. Get us a little brush. Zoom in on the paper clip, which you can't see. And first off, we're going to use a bit of this fluorescent orange. We only really needed the lid because we only need the tiniest amount. And we're just going to dab that all over in a sort of dabby pattern. And then we're going to flip that over and do the back. There we go. That's the end of that. Not using the greatest amount of paint. Then we're going to go into our oxblood. Give that a bit of a shake up. Boop, 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 boop. And do the same again, but perhaps not touching in every place that we touched before, because we don't want to just create a mixture of the colours, we want a layering of the colours. So that's that. And next off is the really dark. That's a really sort of, well, it says, what did it say, soft black, but it's a very sort of purpley, browny, and we need less of that than anything else, because that's like the really dark rust colour that's got itself in there. And come here, little devil. Turn it over, get rid of as much of that shininess as we can. There we go. Then what we're going to do is give that a dry off. Oops. Paper. Transfer that over. And hopefully you can see that that is starting to look like a rusty paperclip. There's not much paint on there, so it won't take much drying, don't worry. There we go. Now, if I was to get a new paperclip, then we can perhaps compare the two. A new paperclip and an aged, slightly gone rusty paperclip. There is no level we won't go to. So, after that, then once it's put on the envelope, you'll see that it looks much better next to that envelope than the bright one ever would. Just wouldn't look right. Right, so now we need to tackle the lace. Let me just get a white wipe and just have a quick clean up. I'd recommend these little plastic boards. We've found these in the local pound shop, and they're great because they really, you can do anything to them and it just wipes straight off. Just dry that off. There we go. Right, so we need a piece of lace. That's how his envelope is looking. That's how our paperclip is looking. We need a piece of lace that's probably longer than the ticket, but not too much longer. We'll chop it off about there, I think. again with the ticket, as we said, it could be when they first met. It could be anything. It could have any significance to them. And the lace of a similar vein. Maybe it was a piece of lace that he took with him when he went off to war to remind him of her. Maybe it's a bit of lace he brought back from Paris when he came back from the war. Who's to know? Could be from the wedding dress, from the baby's christening gown. I really don't know. But I'm sure you could paint a very romantic picture of it. It obviously meant enough to her to keep it, even though, of course, we've just made it. But you get the drift. So that's what we're going to be looking like. So what we need to do now is distress this. So what we need is, I think walnut stain would be too dark. Vintage photo, maybe ink dye in this instance would be good to go. So what we're going to do is just ink up this board, put some ink down on the board. Introduce some water. Get me brush off the floor where I dropped it. Still got blue in there, but it doesn't matter. Mix that round. Get an inky stinky puddle, and then just use the lace to mop that up. There we go. You can now see perhaps that is looking much more aged than the original creamy white.
Scrunch it up in your hand, it'll transfer.
We'll give that a good scrunching round. Give it a roll. Really make it look like it's been around. Look at that. Look at that. Doesn't that look like the perfect piece of aged lace? I think it does. And that's all that matters on this occasion, of course. Right, we'll just give that another wipe as well. There we go. Nice back and clean again. So, we should give that a little dry because it still feels a little damp in my hand. And what we might do now, I think, is before I put that down, I'm just going to use the back of it, get a little bit more of me tea dye, ink that up a little, not too much, and just use that to impress on there. Hopefully we'll get some of the pattern off the lace. There we go. Can you just see that? It's just picked up a little bit of the pattern. So that when, if that's removed, it looks like that lace has been there for a lot longer than it actually has. That's the theory. I'm always fond of a good theory, even if it doesn't work in practice. So we'll just dry that off. Dry that off. Put that there. Get our ticket. Just use a little bit of the ink, perhaps just to, you know, give it the same. It's been in the same environment of the coal fire or the smokers, depending which option you choose. Put that on the top. Apply our aged paper clip.
Julie wants to know if there was a wedding.
Of course there was a wedding. There's always a wedding. Back in the day, that's all they did. Got married. It was compulsory. I don't know. Maybe we should have a look through. Let's have a look through. See if there's anything that would indicate a marriage. I don't know. There we go. There's Heerlen, Statten, Spiel. Again to Miss Smith. That's an M. Smith, so maybe they had a daughter. That's what I'll go with. V. Smith got married, kept her maiden name, and had a daughter that was called M. Smith, because it's exactly the same address. But this is M. Smith rather than V. Smith. And that one's from the Netherlands. So they were obviously quite cosmopolitan people. And that one says, Dear Auntie Molly, I'm on a lovely holiday. The weather is very hot. I visited many places. It is a beautiful country. Cheerio, Irene. And there we go. So there's a Molly Smith comes along. There's an Irene Smith. So that maybe Irene is Molly's sister. So they had 2 children. There we go. That's my theory. That's what I'm working on. And then they went to visited High Force, which is a waterfall that's not far from us, in Weardale. There's a pressed leaf. There we go. Maybe they were out walking one night, got off the bus, decided to walk home, and walk through the fallen leaves. There's a one. I don't even.
Put that in your envelope.
Put it in my envelope.
Yeah.
I was going to put it in my envelope. The leaf.
Yeah.
Let's put it there with a card. Let's put it there with a card. We can gather a few things together about us. There's one there from Dunkirk. That is Boston Stump. Funny place for a name for a place, isn't it? Boston Stump. For what is obviously a church tower. There's one there for the Newcastle War Memorial. There's one of some cats postcard published by J. Salmon Limited, Seven Oaks. Who doesn't love a kitten on a piano? There's another one. There's a, I don't know, Copenhagen, I think. Obviously some Danish connection. Victoria Hospital, Keighley. There we are, Miss. I can't remember. See what that is. B. Smith, maybe. Maybe this was the mother. I don't know. And they lived in 112 James South Road, Newcastle. Still in best of health. Sincerely yours, Jack. There we are. We even have a name now. Jack. Jack's appeared on the picture, but it was obviously in the Victoria Hospital, and that's dated September 28th of September 18. So maybe it was came back from the war and was spending some convalescent time. That's a very pretty card, isn't it? One says from Jack 1917, and that was printed in Paris. So the plot thickens. Jack was obviously in Paris in 1917 and ended up in Keighley Hospital in 1918.
Oh.
That's my working theory. So I think maybe we should put Jack's lovely wheelbarrow flower card with that one. Keep them together, I feel. And who's this one? Oh, look. Babyface. That's what it says. Look. Babyface. Looking by the type font, I'd say these are definitely sort of 1920s-ish. Best wishes and kindest regards. Have for a happy birthday. And that's to Molly Smith, who at one point lived in 62 Isabel Street, Newcastle. The Laxley Wheel on the Isle of Man. Got around a bit, these people. Grace Darling Museum in Bamborough. What we have here, North Street, Port William. And one there, Widdicombe Fair. Postcard with the tyre voice of Widdicombe Fair, which I will not recite for you. What was a card? Look, on your anniversary. With love, ma'am. All marked cards, quite an early one, and obviously, you know, it's for the people that can't quite make their mind up. As you turn the wheel round, look, on your anniversary, and you go everything from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. So if you bought that, you'd only need to buy one. That's a good idea, chaps. Buy that, spin it round each time. 34th, 36th, 38th, 40th, 50th. Are you going to get 50? Oh, no, we go over 50. We get as far as 60th. What does Deborah say? Proof they're married, indeed. And I'm going to leave it on the 60th because I think they got to their diamond wedding. That's what I would say.
Deborah says, yeah.
More Dutch connection there. A load of windmills and things, not to stereotype. One that says, don't ever change.
Shaz lives in the next village along to Widdicombe.
Does she? That's nice. And there, stuck inside the back, is a load of what I can only assume are Dutch type scenes. That looks like a very Dutch scene, I think, with that hat. If you are Dutch and they aren't Dutch, then I apologise. But they do look very Dutch to me. So there we go. We've now got Jack on the scene. They were happily married for a long time. She got lovely letters, sealed with a loving kiss, and she kept those as mementos. So let's now pop those 2 cards. The new one from 1917 from Jack. It's slightly more romantic perhaps than the hospital one, where I'm sure that he wasn't as happy as he was. So we'll pop that one in there, pushing it past the paper clip. We've now got the leaf, which was obviously preserved, meant something. We'll pop that into there, and then our original.
So you reckon he was in the entire First World War?
Yes, I would say that he probably was. Given the dates on the cards and things, he certainly served for a lot of the war. And obviously got injured towards the end. And there's our original inspiration, which is the blue Christmas card, where this all originated from. So we'll pop that in there as well. Seal up. And there we go. That's our take on the Take 5, which is an envelope. It speaks for itself. Blue, it certainly is. Text, well, we've written on it and stamped some text and stamped some text on the inside. Stamp, well, we've actually got a genuine stamp and another stamp, and our lace there. So I think that covers the Take 5. I've been quite late this week, obviously, because it's Monday. So tomorrow there'll be another Take 5. Miss P will introduce that one at 2 o'clock UK time tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. I hope you weren't too bored with the presentation. And that is it from me. So thank you very much. I'll see you again next week, probably, or at the end of this week to do tomorrow's, depending on what it is. If it's too difficult, well, who's to know? Might pull a sickie, as they say. But thank you very much. Take care out there, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.